Hi, I'm Joe Hutchings, and this is how to create a metal guitar in Bandlab. Ever since the first synthesizer was used in a rock band, musicians have been trying to recreate the sound of a guitar. So it's no surprise then that I get asked, how can you create a metal guitar in Bandlab using a MIDI instrument track? Well, the secret to creating a metal guitar sound in Bandlab is overdrive. It's fair to say that the MIDI guitar sounds in Bandlab are pretty awful, but with some clever effects manipulation, here is how I created an overdrive style metal guitar sound. First, we need to add a MIDI instrument track and a MIDI guitar sound. So first I'm going to click on the plus icon, which is just below the bottom track on this track mixer screen. Then I'm going to click on MIDI instruments. Now I can scroll through the tabs at the top and click on Guitar tab and then select the twang guitar from here, or since it's already in my library, I can click on this cloud icon at the top of the screen, and that brings up my library of MIDI instruments, and I can click on the twang guitar here. If you haven't already installed the twang guitar, then you will need to click on it twice, once to install it and once to load it up. Next I'm going to click on the step sequencer icon, which is the bottom right of the screen. I'm just going to add some MIDI notes so that when I start creating the metal guitar, I've got something to reference it to. And metal guitar generally is played in power chords, so I'm going to add a power chord here. And for this particular one, I'm going to do a power chord which starts with E2. So I'll just put a note in there, and then I'm going to drag the end of it so that it's 2 notes long. And then I want to turn it into a power chord, that note. So I'm going to add a second note, which is 7 squares higher, which in this case is B. And then I'm just going to put a few more of those in. And now that I've added my notes, I'm going to click on the X icon at the top right of the screen. Then I'm going to tap on the settings icon at the top of the screen. And I'm just going to change the tempo here by clicking on the plus icon to the left of the tempo number at the moment, which is 120. I'll just turn that to 140. Then at the top of the screen, I'm going to click on the wave icon to take me back to my instrument screen. Next, we need to add an amp simulator with an overdrive style amp. So now that I've got some notes as a reference point, I'm going to tap on effects at the bottom of the screen to add some effects. Then I'm going to tap on create, which is just below the none icon, and then tap near the top of the screen on the plus icon. Then at the top of the screen, I'm going to tap on the amps and cabs tab. And the first effects I'm going to add is the multi-amp pro. So I'm going to tap on that. And to the right of where it says model, I'm going to tap on the amps list. And I'm going to scroll through these different amp simulators. I'm going to click on Mississippi 5150. Now there are one or two other amps here that give a reasonable overdrive amp simulator, but this one I find is probably the most usable. Then I'm going to drag the dot to the right of the word drive all the way to the right. So it now says 10.0 under drive, and that's going to push up the overdrive to the maximum. Then we need to add a cab simulator and select a metal genre style cab. So now that I've got an amp sorted, I'm going to need to add a cab. So I'm going to click on the plus icon, the top right of the screen. Then I'm going to tap on the amp and cabs tab again at the top of the screen. And I'm going to click on multi-cab pro. Now there are various cabs here that would work in this scenario, but for this demo, I'm going to tap on the list to the right of the word cab, and then I'm going to click on 4x10 J Vintage. And I find this probably the most usable cab for metal setup, but you might prefer one of the other cabs. Next, I'm going to tap on the list to the right of the word mic, and I'm going to change the mic to the Electro V20 because I think it has a slightly better sound for metal guitar. And I'm going to change the mic position to far. Once again, I think that setting is better for a metal guitar sound. Next, we'll add an EQ3M equalizer and use the mid sweep to shape the sound. Now that I've set up my amp and cab simulators, I need to start sculpturing the sound to be more metal guitar sounding. So I'm going to click on the plus icon near the top right of the screen again. Then I'm going to scroll through the tabs at the top of the screen and tap on the tone tab. And I'm going to tap on the EQ3M equalizer. And I use this equalizer for the mid sweep. So I'm going to move the dot to the right of the word mid to the right until it says about 10 dB below the word mid. And then I'm going to move the dot to the right of mid sweep to the left until it says about 600 Hz under mid sweep. Now I'm going to press my finger on the icon for the EQ3M so it increases slightly in size, and then I'm going to drag it so it becomes the first effects in the list. So it's before the amp and cabs. And now let's add my sound hack, the feedback killer. while the feedback killer is actually meant to be used for live audio tracks. Here I'm going to use it to remove the piano hammer sound that is in the guitar sound. For the next bit, I added a little trick of my own here that probably is not so obvious. So I click on the plus icon at the top right of the screen again. And this time I'm going to scroll all the way to the end and I'm going to click on the utility tab. And I'm going to click on the feedback killer. Now the feedback killer is normally used to reduce feedback on a microphone or another audio input track. But I've found that this works quite effectively for creating a metal guitar sound. And to do this, you move the slider to the right of the word amount to the right until it says between 7 and 10 below the word amount. Personally, I prefer to go all the way up to 10. But you could use slightly less than that if you prefer a slightly different metal sound. And then I'm going to put my finger on the feedback killer icon so it grows slightly. And I'm going to move it all the way forward so it's the second FX in the list. So it's just behind the EQ3M. Finally, let's add a graphic EQ equalizer to remove some more of the piano hammer sound and to fine-tune the shape of the sound of the guitar. Now, to sculpture that sound a little bit more, I'm going to click on the plus icon near the top right of the screen again. And I'm going to scroll through the tabs at the top and click on the tone tab. And then I'm going to click on the graphic EQ. And I can use this graphic EQ to sculpture the sound more to my liking. And your preferences might be slightly different to mine, but this is how I would set it up. So I'm going to reduce the second slider, which is the white dot to the right of the word 200 Hertz, to the left until it says about minus 10 dB below the words 200 Hertz. Then I'm going to drag the white dot to the right of 1.6 kilohertz to the left until it says about minus 14 dBs under 1.6 kilohertz. Now, by reducing those two, it takes out most of the piano-like hammer sound that is inbuilt into the twang guitar sound. Next, I'm going to move the dot to the right of the word 800 Hertz to the right until it says about 4 dB under 800 Hertz. I'm going to move the dot to the right of 3.2 kilohertz to the right until it says about 10 dB under 3.2 kilohertz. And I'm going to move the dot to the right of 6.4 kilohertz to the right until it says about 4 dB under 6.4 kilohertz. To finish off, I'm going to tap on the 3 dots at the top right of the screen. Then I'm going to click on Save As. And I'm going to save this as Metal Guitar. click on the save. And now this preset has been saved so I can use it on any of my future projects. At the top left of the screen, I'm going to click on the back arrow. Then you'll notice now that this effects preset has now been called Metal Guitar, and that sits on the end of my list of my personal presets. And at the top right of the screen, I'm going to click on the X icon to take me back to the track mixer screen. If you've enjoyed this video, do give us the thumbs up and click on that subscribe button. Cheers.